It's gone from 8 down to only 5 here at the very end on the final lap as Will Lyon and Ryan Carwile are going to swap the lead. It's going to be Sanchez on the outside. Can Tyler maybe sneak it past both of them? Will the lap traffic play a part? Big lift from Lyon. That's going to send him backwards. Sanchez tries to find some clean air. They've lost ground to Carwile. Is it going to be close enough that they can catch him down to the finish? What about that lap traffic in front? That's Arribas trying to stay out of the way. He's actually helping Carwile. Carwile's got the draft, and he is going to take the win here at Indianapolis.
Looks like he might try to go around the outside here. Oh, it's going to be tight.
Lepisto wants another win, and
oh no!
They come together. They're absolutely coming together, and one is in the barrier. The other just manages to stay off. Lepisto doesn't hit anything other than fair and growl, but there goes a potential win.
Yeah, massive chaos there for those drivers. Here is the replay of that. Yeah, the little tip there from Van Rassel. Ooh, talk about some narrow margins from Stephen Orrell.
I was going to say, there's still a chance that we could see a change of position here. Togo's a little too hot, but Ove Trangrade gets very close. Surely he's going to try and send a go. No, he's covered off as Miko defends the inside down into the Casio triangle. Now he has to be smooth on the throttle to seal the deal, and he is as he comes to the line. Our 7th different winner of the season to tie the record. Miko Makala gets his first ever win here in Japan. Yeah, he's going to have to really dive in to try and take it here. Decides not to. Maybe into the Melbourne hairpin. Ooh, it's a fantastic run. And defending the 183, tries to cover him off. Now he's back to the racing line, sends it in deep. And can he get it done? We won't get to know because we have to go to Tom Layton, who is going to take the win. And with this, the championship for the 2022 Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing Series. Look at that, celebrating because he knows he has gotten it. It's going to be a race to the line. Look at this, a drag race down to it at the end. Will it be Mayorga or Bolton? It's going to be Bolton.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world.
I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike.
My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect.
How's it going, Sally? Yeah, I'm alright, Mick. How's it going?
Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings where they go into the top and the spider's in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me.
Freezing. And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
Getting to be the last race on GSRC before Christmas, the Camel Series has decided to do it with some French flair. But they also get to be the guinea pigs as our first show at this new to iRacing track. We'll see who gets on top of it quickest as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Camel GT Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sports cars are no stranger to Magny-Cours, but these cars will be a new experiment. Let's head to our track guide to see what's in store for them. Welcome to Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. Located about 3 hours south of Paris, the track is most famous for its nearly 2 decades of hosting the French Grand Prix. But it has seen a variety of open-wheel series, sports cars, and motorcycles compete during its history. With about 4.5 kilometers in length, or just under 3 miles, its 17 turns wind back and forth between a series of hairpins and chicanes. Notably, a few of the turns are modeled after famous corners from other tracks. Estoril's long, sweeping opening to the lap provides a serious challenge to kick things off. Then, the flat-out run up to Adelaide tests your precision with braking by smacking you in the face with the slowest corner on the track. Later, the Nürburgring and Imola chicanes do little to slow the car, but forces you to thread the needle on your way towards 2 other tight hairpins. But there are other notable turns that are unique to the circuit. The Grand Courbe is the first you must tackle and is a swift double apexer that blends directly into Estoril. This means that any attempts at an overtake there are going to require some serious bravery. Chateau d'Eau will test your throttle control as the radius opens up and needs a good exit to make sure you aren't vulnerable on the run down to Lissay. The reputation of this track tells you to expect overtakes to be difficult, but a little aggression and some good braking should give you opportunities. All in all, after more than 60 years, French race fans have embraced this staple of motorsport in the country. Well, Joey, it's a new track, and, well, all these drivers are used to each other, but every track always has a little bit of a different dynamic.
I think we're about to see that dynamic for the first time with these cars on this brand new content for iRacing. And we were talking about it pre-race. I think some of these sweeping corners like Estoril and also heading down into Adelaide with these big brake zones are really going to draw these classes apart. But keep in mind that infield section gets very tight and twisty with multi-class racing. That can spell trouble as these cars weave down the straightaway for the best track position. And as we see those final set of turns, that 15, 16, 17 complex is a very tricky final chicane leading out onto the front straightaway for a drag race to the line.
Yeah, that's going to be one to watch out for if it comes down to it at the very end. But there is a championship underway, and this is round 2, so it's early days. But if we take a look at the prototypes for the first race, Hugh Haycox back at the Nürburgring basically ran over everybody, just took off from the start and never looked back. But Iamaki managed to get a second behind him with Hovdal rounding out the podium. Watch out for Antti Lepisto, as he was one of our rivals for the championship last season. See if he can catch back up to it. Xavier Sanchez with a good chase up to 6 behind Timothy Reed, who snuck into the top 5. What about the GTOs down in the Audis there, Joey? How'd that one wind up?
The GTO race was fantastic at Nürburgring, and it ended up being Jukka Leskala, a very familiar name who leads the way taking home that win. But couple of familiar but newer names, Kurt Krum and Roger Christensen, were really giving Jukka a run for his money there, as you see in 2nd and 3rd place. Also have Andreas Schuster and Ian Haycox, one of our onboard cameras that we've got today, inside the top 5. But given that we've only had one race, these drivers are just getting going in the championship.
Absolutely. And now this is going to be a bit more like we're used to. Last time out, it was by laps. This time it is by time, as it's a 40-minute race around here. So it's their sprint format. It's open setup. We'll see if less wing will help anybody as we go along a few long straights throughout here. But they have no spare cars. So if they do wind up damaging it, especially on some of the tall curbs and those chicanes, that could be a real problem, as you just have to kind of come in and repair the car. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents and a disqualification at 25. There's definitely some paved runoff in places, so drivers will need to be careful about racking those up over the course of today's race. Hugh Haycox is back to try and share his domination with the group once again, but Fabian Nubluth is keeping him honest on that first lap. They have only 0.03 of a second between them. But it's Topi Kortaniemi who's the quickest in the Audis. That's because we haven't seen a time yet from Jukka Leskala. We're expecting him to jump up, but we'll see how high he jumps. We're kind of thinking the pole, but, you know, the eggs have not hatched yet.
These cars are just kind of getting around. We got our eyes on Jukka Leskala right now. Always this cool kind of chameleon green, orange fading paint scheme in the familiar #1 machine. And get a good look at this track for the first time, Joe. This is really the first time that we've had this track on the screen with cars going around it.
Indeed. And So far, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Some pretty cool stuff out here. Was a big lockup on the inside tire there for Juko Leskola. Missed the apex slightly. Just 2 more real turns to try and go here down into Lissay at the end of the lap. It's a hairpin, very sharp hairpin, a little puff of smoke, and then a chicane. I anticipate these Audis can really clobber those curbs, but he gives them some space as Leskola comes across. And it looks like he's got a 36.4, so it's a pretty good lap, but surprisingly, he has not beat Cortiniemi, who's quicker than him by about 0.07 of a second. He's got enough time for a second time around, but Yuko's going to have to try and really put it in here.
Yeah, Toppy is really up there with a great time and leading the GTO class with a provisional pole of 36.39 right now. However, we know how fast Yuka can really be. I saw a few lockups on his first qualifying laps, another big lockup. It shows you that these competitors are still coming to grips with this brand new track.
Indeed. It's probably going to reveal a few secrets throughout today because, yes, they've raced a few times throughout the week, but this is the strength of field race where they have the biggest and the baddest out there, and Leskola going to try and prove himself such, but his fellow Finn right now is denying him the chance. That said, we have seen a lot in the past that the second lap tends to be a little quicker. And was the car bobbling, or was he trying to warm the tires there? That was a bit strange.
I think that Yuka is very familiar with the car, and he looks like he's already off the pace here. He's just going to have a little fun drifting it around. I think that he made a mistake earlier, saw his delta was off, and gave up on the lap.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, finally I kind of saw him whip it through the Chateau d'Eau corner there as we look forward ahead of him. Esko Letiniemi is going to get a lap down, and that's actually good enough for 4th. Nicely done by another Finn. So we've got, looks like 3 of the top 4 are all Finns in the Audi, which isn't too great of a shock as this car has quite a bit of rally heritage. Meanwhile, Del Olmo on his first lap across, a 36.9. Well, make that 3 out of the top 5. He goes ahead of Esko Letiniemi, but he doesn't have enough time for a second lap. What about the number 18 of Yuri Geisen? Second lap across, 38.2. is going to jump him up into 12th. We're missing a good 6 cars in the GTPs that have not set a time. So a few of them will have to be trying to climb their way through, perhaps some slower drivers if they have better pace. As we take a look at the finishing order of the grid, Hugh Haycox will start on the pole. As we mentioned, Farron Grau will be in P2. After that, it's Fabian Jungbluth in 3rd. Timothy Reed starts 4th today. Mark Esposito in the 5th position is flanked by Aaron Humphrey. Timu Toika, who hops over from the Lotus 49s back into the Camel Series, will start from 7th. Germain Suarez, P8, and Tomas Bartfai will start 9th today. After that, Fernando Serrato will be in the 10th position. Brendan Lim, P11 for him, is followed by Daryl Waninger in 12th. Then you've got Tim Yonk in 13th and Gerard Boldu in 14th position. From there, Jason Clapper, Kurt Clapper, Brett Pancari, Gabby Chavez, Mark Jimenez, and Christian Uribas will be starting from the back of the field.
In the GTO class, pole sitter goes to Yuka Leskola right there. I'm sorry, Topi Kortaniemi with Yuka Leskola coming in that 2nd position. I'm sorry, Topi. And then 3rd place is Andreas Schuster there with a 136.8. Javier Del Olmo sitting beside him in row 2. Esko Litnaimi there in the 5th place. Ian Haycox in the 6th spot. Jamie Hummel-Smith in 7th. Doug Cloud, Reed Miller, and Arturo Vicente Jan there in the 10th position in the GTOs. In 11th, we have Arturius Kundalis, as well as Yuri Geisen, Kevin Parish, Franco Scurry, Daniel Repetto, and Mark Ole will round out the GTO field.
Getting ready to take off on the pace lap behind the Porsche pace car, and we'll see how they deal with this track soon enough as we take a look at our onboard cameras. First up is Doug Cloud showing us his little VR rig that he's got ready to go. Maybe just making a few little tweaks there. Make himself just the last bit comfortable he needs to get the best performance. And then, of course, as has started to become tradition here, you got the view of Ian Haycox, who looks very festive. He's got the Christmas decorations up. I love it.
Always good to see these in-car cameras, and looks like we do have everybody rolling away on the grid. And Joe, I'm impressed. Look at all of these GTP cars and GTO cars lined up. When they're on the front straightaway, there isn't much more room out there.
Yeah, a 36, I imagine, will be plenty for this race, especially with the prototypes lapping here in just over a minute 20. It's not super short, but it's not that long of a lap. Even the GTO cars saw themselves put in times of just over a minute 30, even at the fast end. So it's not that long of a circuit. And especially with a lot of these high-speed portions you see coming out of Estoril and around down past Gulf and into Adelaide, that's going to be a long, long run into an extremely tight hairpin. So hopefully everybody's minding themselves on that first lap, as they're all probably going to have to try and find position into there.
It'll be interesting to see the racing sort itself out, and once the GTP cars come up into the back of the GTO cars, that is what I'm really curious to see. Is, are we going to see outside passes around some of these sweeping corners? Are we going to see late lunges? Or are we going to see the Audi really dominate in the infield, where it's all about the traction coming off of the corners?
Yeah, there you see down into the first of the hairpins. There's a series of them throughout the lap, which hopefully will provide opportunities to pass. If not, traffic usually does the trick around here. Now, we're trying to figure out, as we take a look at the weather, which is rather cool out there, 74 Fahrenheit on the track surface, if Gabby Chavez is actually former IndyCar driver Gabby Chavez. Now, they hail from Indiana Club, so we can only speculate at this point, but we weren't alerted to him participating in this race. So hopefully we'll get a chance to chat and maybe check to see if that's the case. I actually want, has he been doing any IMSA stuff, Joey? Do you know where he's been since then?
I'm not sure I'm really not sure in terms of his professional career. I know that he's always a standout driver, whether it's been in open wheel cars or endurance prototypes. I'm sure he's got a good home somewhere.
No doubt. And of course, who wouldn't want to get a chance to try an old school prototype here? So I'm sure he'll be having some fun with that one as they come down into the Imola chicane here. Not the last chicane on the lap, but definitely the last of the faster ones as they approach Chateau d'Eau, which is another right-hand hairpin before they're going to get up onto the run to Lucé, which could present a few chances to maybe try and pass. It's they took out the chicane that used to be on the way up to that corner, and now it's a straight run all the way down to the final hairpin, which you can see here going underneath the bridge with a nice little jink in the track, and then into the braking of that last run, which should bring us to the pace car peeling off in a second once it heads into the chicane. So that'll release Hugh Haycox. There it goes. Let's see how quickly he takes off, or if he's going to hold them a bit. He's waiting patiently here, looking to try and keep them behind. And there is the green flag. Big checkup behind them. Some cars having to spread out as they try and find themselves some space coming up into Grand Courbe. And it looks like they're mostly going to be single file until you get to the back of the pack up into Estoril. Otherwise, it's a clean start. Let's go to the GTOs.
GTOs are already crossing the line here. The top five got a great jump, and it was ultimately Jukka Leskala that had a fantastic timing of the green flag that got the lead over Topi there, and he leads the way.
Meanwhile, the prototypes look to have some problems towards the back as I'm looking up front. And, Jungbluth actually managed to be challenged by Farron Grau here, or challenge him. Not sure which is the case. They're side by side. And we got car off track as well in the back, as there you can see having to take a cut course penalty. Unfortunately, Farron Grau went across the paved run off of the Nürburgring chicane.
I think I saw Kurt Clapper having some problems as well in the GTP cars as these GTOs stream by some of the lead cars that have had problems in the first few turns.
So some messes there throughout the prototypes. Kurt Clapper is the one that looks like he has fallen behind the GTOs. Chavez and Lim have had some problems. Oh, and Timu Toika is off now. It looks like somebody else, I think German Suarez, also followed him off. There he is on screen now and is losing a couple positions. Timu goes to the back of the group, down to 17th in the meantime.
I don't think the action is done yet, Joe. I think we're going to see more cars kind of misstep as they're all learning the racing lines, not just the driving lines, but the racing lines out here can be different once you put cars side by side. And it's pretty stagnant up at the GTO field. One thing that these competitors don't want to see, though, this is Jukka Leskala starting to do his thing at the front.
Indeed, as he swings it out wide to try and open up the entry into Grand Courbe. They head into Estoril once again. Going to be so tough in these little Audi GTOs that love to understeer, and it's such a long corner. If any of the prototypes try to go around the outside on the exit, I wonder if we're going to see some issues out there. An update, it was an incident for Brendan Lim that sent him into pit lane, but Chavez started from the pits and is now trying to go past all of the GTO classes, which you can see right here are maybe causing things to be a bit frantic.
You know, if I'm going to guess, I would bet that's Gabby out there with an Indiana account in a stock Nissan GTP paint out there, still trying to feel it out, starting from pit lane, having fun going through the pack.
Yeah, but first he's got to get through the slower class here.
Oh, Jukka Leskala just had a spin by himself. He is off driver's left. That's going to promote Topi to the lead.
Wow, an uncharacteristic mistake for the number one. He gets it back on the track, and he doesn't hit anything in the process, but yeah, spinning it through the hairpin there in the middle of the circuit. Not sure what could have caused something like that. That's highly unusual for this car.
Joe, I want to go back to that qualifying moment. You said it was kind of an odd thing. I think that they're standing so hard on the gas and using the all-wheel drive that they're just struggling for traction in those slow corners.
You know, that could be it. And let's take one more look at it. I can report that Reed just went by Jungbluth for second in the prototypes. The only other thing I could think is maybe if he downshifted too far and the car just broke out from underneath him potentially.
I think that you were on it right there. I think he downshifted because it happened really in the beginning half of the corner. Then he stood on the gas to try to save it, but ultimately it did over-rotate on him.
So there you see Jungbluth now demoted down into third where he began. Reed up into second place, but Hugh Haycox is not running away like he did at the Nürburgring. So apparently a little bit more even here at a track that is a lot newer to everybody out there as they get ready to complete lap 3.
Impressive with Reed just hanging on the back, though. We did see Hugh Haycox dominate at the Nürburgring, but Joe, look at how different this circuit is in comparison.
Absolutely. It might have a corner named after that circuit, but seems to be quite different in comparison, as we had an issue for Tomasz Bartfai here on screen. Lost 9th spot to Jason Clapper. Great run up through. Jason tends to do this. He usually doesn't qualify and tries to pass as many cars as he can along the way, usually picking up a lot from attrition. Right now in front of him, that is Mark Jimenez. As, oh, Jungbluth just lost another spot down into the hairpin as well. There you can see that is Grau just in front of him.
I think some of these competitors, I mentioned it, they're still trying to feel it out. And when you have such tremendous closing speeds that we're seeing now with the GTP cars kind of catching the GTO, you got to really be careful about getting in too deep on those heavy hairpins.
And most of the passes, as we got more spins here, not sure who this is. This looks like the back of the pack. So that is Arribas, Pongari, and Serato there. So this is for 15th, 16th, and 17th position. Oh, and now Tim Yonk has had a problem, and the 28th. So some serious growing pains going on. Is this the 33 off course? So that is Esposito in that 33 machine. That was out of the Chateau d'Eau hairpin as Hugh Haycock sets the fastest lap of the race.
We got a problem with our GTO lead. That was Topi having an issue on the brakes right behind Del Olmo.
Yeah, the two of them went side by side into the Nürburgring chicane, and Topi was the one that came out the worst of the two. We might want to get a replay of this one. Javier got just a fantastic run out of Adelaide and decided it was worth challenging him.
Javier has really been hounding the back at Topi this whole time. Like you said, they got side by side and just in too deep, but thankfully look at the car correction out of the number 2. Great job to keep it pointed the right way.
I was not expecting to already have 2 lead changes in this class in this race. I thought Lescala was going to be running away with things. I almost wonder if he didn't even touch Del Olmo, if he started to lose it already as he tried to open up the corner. But that might be a debate for another time as we come back live, and Del Olmo now leads this race. Meanwhile, coming off of the hairpin, that was Esposito losing out to Jason Clapper.
Now looking at this GTP field here, we're looking at Mark Esposito there as he makes his way through some of this traffic. He's currently chasing down Jason Clapper, but also has Tomas Bartfai right on his bumper.
And this is Farron Grau and Fabian Jungbluth trading positions yet again. Whatever was plaguing Fabian earlier on in the race, he's got it under control now and has repassed the number 22. But this is where we've seen the 10 be vulnerable. Let's see if this is a wing setting or if he's just braking too early.
It's a good passing opportunity. This is a deceivingly long straightaway. I don't think he's close enough, but look at this huge lunge on the brakes. He gets a little bit of a lockup. Is he going to get it slowed down in time? The over-under is going to happen. Not this time.
Well, that time it wasn't Fabian braking too early. It was Farron braking too late and just absolutely chucked into the corner. Great heads up by the 10 to avoid that. But now look at this. We approach the back of the GTO field, and this is going to cause even more of a headache.
You're right, and gosh, look at how busy these weaving sections of the racetrack can get. It's easy when the straightaways are straight, but when they have little bends in them, you find cars going left and right and 3 wide potentially going around Audis.
Yeah, trying to navigate past Martiali, and they're going to be able to get through, thankfully. The battle carries on its own. Up next, they're going to be up to Kundelis and Scurry, so still weaving through the mid-pack of the GTOs at this stage.
It's going to get busier and busier because I tell you what, as these GTP cars move their way towards the front of the GTO field, there's quite a few battles that, you know, are 2-3 cars deep that they're going to have to pick their way through.
So we come over to more of these GTOs. This is Ian Haycox, currently behind Esko Letiniemi for 4th position, along with the likes of Topi Kortiniemi, former leader of the race, just in front of them. He must have recently gotten those positions back as we hop on board with the very festive Ian Haycox, just sitting and waiting patiently.
Waiting patiently. He's been chasing Esko this whole race, and he's really done a great job. Like you said, Joe, there's Topi in the black Audi kind of leading this pack of 3, and then actually behind Ian is going to have Yuko coming up pretty quickly on him.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Yuko is most likely going to have pace on Ian. No offense to Ian, but it's typically been Yuko who's been the quicker of the two of them over the past few seasons. As that was a car sending it in on Yuko, who actually goes back past him. That was actually Hugh Haycox. So that was the leader in the prototypes that is getting ready to lap the leaders in the GTOs for the first time. Oh, and once again, traffic just unfortunately is bad in some places no matter what you do.
Hugh Haycox is being very aggressive, but picking his moments wisely. He's not just barging his way through the GTO field, but look at the speed difference between the two cars in some of these sections.
And confidence on what that car is going to do. He knew that he could make that gap and picked it perfectly. So yeah, no wonder Hugh Haycox is still at the top spot as he goes by Andreas Schuster, second in the race, and now Del Olmo just in front of him. Not going to be able to get past him there.
Really curious. Look at the Audi launch away from the GTP car on that corner exit. Once they get up to speed, the GTPs have plenty of horsepower.
Oh, somebody off. I think that might be Estrel. Yeah, that is. So that's the 9 car. That's Timu Toika. And a few others were with him. Oh, that was unfortunately a mess with a lapped car as Toika ran into Esposito along with, I think, Suarez. Yeah,
I think
that's Esposito right there that clips the back of the GTO.
it was right in that area of the racetrack where the two classes have such a huge difference in speed, Joe, and I think it just caught him out.
Yeah, it always pays to get some practice in traffic in this car because it is such a unique experience. You were talking about it before we came live as well, Joey, that there's not many multi-class series here on iRacing that have the performance gap that these two cars have.
It's pretty crazy when you look at it. You know, in the mechanical speed bits, they're pretty even, but the advantage goes to the Audi because of the all-wheel drive and the launch out of it. But then these medium to high-speed corners, the aerodynamics of the GTP car just have tremendous speed.
That's Toyka we were watching, and off course was, I think, Parrish in the GTO that went off. Meanwhile, side by side, coming up into the braking of Lissay, looks like the spot goes to Esposito, back on track in 14th ahead of Pancari. And I got to give Mark credit because he's just not given up on this one. He has been up and down the field numerous times already.
Yes, I agree. Esposito has had an issue. And oh no, we've got an issue with our GTO. Kind of second, third place as a GTP car gets spun around and ultimately takes out. It was Topi and Esco there in the third and fourth place.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was Aaron Humphrey who just lost control. It's a very powerful car with little grip and low-speed corners, that Nissan. So Humphrey just spun up the tires, and the poor Audis were just kind of in a wrong place, wrong time situation.
And the Audis have all-wheel drive, so they're launching out of the corners. You see, they just kind of steamrolled that GTP once they were on the gas.
Oh, yeah, that caused a lot of damage there to the prototype. And then we saw this at the same time. Ooh, big hits here. And unfortunately, the 26 with a monster run into the wall, absolutely flipping out into the grass.
That was Arturo Yan back there just getting it wrong with the GTP car, and unfortunately heavy damage in the wall.
Got to be day done for him, I have to think, unfortunately. Well, all this has meant I was just checking in on Gabby Chavez and had almost spin just now, but managed to gather the car up. He's still running in 18th. He's trying to play catch up to a lot of slower cars right now as you see him coming around towards the Imola chicane, rather, down into the Chateau d'Eau hairpin. And Bartfi just had a massive problem because he's towed into the pits. I'm not sure what caused this.
And yeah, I'm just trying to keep track of all of our GTO stuff as we're keeping our eyes on what looks to be Gabby Chavez on the screen here. And actually, the battle for 7th in GTO right now with Jamie Hamelsmith, Doug Cloud, and Reed Miller is starting to heat up. Doug Cloud is only about a quarter of a second behind Jamie Hamelsmith right now, and with this GTP traffic coming through, it's making things interesting.
Lescala is about 4 seconds back, but Schuster might be able to beat him to the lead because he's been pressurizing Del Olmo up to now. It's a big question on whether or not he can keep this up, maybe take advantage of the traffic, or will the traffic take advantage of him as he gets a little bit edged out by Mark Jimenez, who's 6th in the prototypes, loses a little time in the process. He'll have to hope he gets paid back by those prototypes at some point, but Lescala continues to chomp away at that gap.
I really want to give a shout out to both of those GTO cars. It looks like we've got a problem with the number 12. Is this Kaitanami out there having an issue and he's just stuck out there? This was our 4th place runner earlier.
Yeah, Letanami's been having a bad day. I think we're seeing growing pains of this new track here, Joey. They haven't quite figured out where they should not be trying certain moves, and we're seeing a lot of drivers pay the price for it.
I want to go back to my point. These GTO leaders, Javier Del Olmo, I know that whenever he wins a race or is out front, he's always so pumped about his finish. And Andreas Schuster has been having a great race. He's just hung on the back of Javier, and I love seeing these two out front battling for the lead.
This is fair. And Grau on screen, he just had a self-spin at the 180, and that has lost him 3rd place yet again. I've lost count of how many times Fabian Jungbluth and Farron Grau have changed that podium position, because there you see Fabian right now sitting in 3rd, but don't count this one out. It's 2.5 seconds between himself and his rival, and a bit of traffic or a mistake from Fabian could change it once again.
And how many mistakes have we seen between all the competitors out here? I can't count anymore. And Joe, we still have 23 minutes left. I don't think this action is over by any means.
Certainly not. We're not even halfway through this race as we come through the final turn once again. That's Humphrey, who's amazingly still looking like he's doing decent on pace. But the battle for fifth looks like it might go away because of that damage. Let's see, last lap was a little bit off of his regular pace. That's Jimenez behind him. Jason Clapper, my goodness. Jimenez up 13 spots. Oh, no. Well,
that was the 32. That was Mark Jimenez.
That's no longer up 13 spots for Mark Jimenez, and he is going to have to come in for some repairs. I doubt the car is going to be able to continue in that shape.
Thank goodness this is a virtual world, because that was such a heavy impact, and we're seeing those speeds around that long sweeping corner, and here he is. The heavy damage just sends him off the track on the brakes.
Yeah. There was, I hope he tows, and he does. I was going to say, that's not a safe car to try and complete the lap with. It can go in a straight line, but it can't break in a straight line, and he is going to take a tow. So Humphrey may yet hold on to this fifth place. He only has Jason Clapper now to contend with, but again, Clapper has just been blitzing through the field.
Really impressed with some of the runs these GTP cars have had. Some of them have kept it clean. Some of them have found incidents nearly the whole lap, but you're right. It's still the kind of the test of this new content, but the drivers seem to be figuring it out.
Yep, and well, if there's one thing this series likes, the drivers in this series like, it's a little bit of chaos. They thrive on it. So we'll see if they like this style of chaos and want a bit of French racing to return next season. This still hasn't separated. Look at this. This is Del Olmo and Schuster still vying for the lead down in the GTOs, but now they've got a whole bunch of prototypes trying to get through.
This is actually as stretched out as it's been, Joe. This is the GTP cars really holding up Schuster, if you will, stretching out the gap till Del Olmo, and here comes more GTP cars through this GTO lead.
Oh, and that's a good illustration of what I was talking about if they try to go around the outside of these GTOs. It got very, very close between Schuster and Esposito, but thankfully he left enough space. That did cost him the exit, and he's now lost about 9/10 of a second to the leader. And even worse than that, in his mirrors, he can now see Yuko Leskola.
Great minds think alike. I think Yuka, give him probably 2 more laps, maybe 3, and he's going to be right on the back of Andreas Schuster here.
That said, the 5 and the 11 car, I think, have been pushing pretty hard, because I would have thought that Yuko would have caught them a little quicker than he did. He is definitely faster than them, but I thought that maybe it'd just be 3-4 laps and he'd be there. It's taken him well more than that, and he still isn't technically on top of Schuster. He needs to catch up a few more tenths. So I think Del Olmo and Andreas have a fair bit of pace underneath those cars.
I agree with you, and I've been watching timing and scoring, and to your point, Yuka is not taking a second a lap out of these front two. He's only taking about 3/10, maybe half a second a lap. And sometimes when the GTP cars catch, he takes out more. Sometimes he takes out less. But here, coming around to the final chicane, looks like he's in a little deep, has a lockup. But now I think we've got all 3 cars in the same frame.
Indeed, all within about a second and a half of each other. So the gap is now to where he could make a serious threat to them in the latter half of the race. So what we just did, we have to do all over again a second time.
Oh no, Del Olmo's gone off in turn 2. He's all the way in the gravel. That's going to sink him back to what I think is 3rd place. Promote Andreas Schuster to the point.
Leskola gets 1 down. Oh, that's a shame for Del Olmo. He was looking so good up to this point, really managing traffic and keeping Andreas from having a run at him. And just a simple off is what undoes his lead here at Magny-Cours. So now can Schuster hold back Leskola now that he's inherited the lead? I'm not sure of the stats of Schuster, because I'm trying to remember if we've seen him take a win here in Camel yet.
I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and double check that, but I'm actually looking at the front of Schuster's car, and I see a little bit of front right damage. And look at this. Yuko's already right up on the back of Schuster, and now that Javier is not out there, this is the battle for the lead.
It is indeed. Now out through Chateau d'Eau. He gets a good exit. He's going to keep himself safe for the time being. That's what he needs to keep doing. Just get those good corner exits. But should be some slipstream down through Gulf into Adelaide, I imagine, with how boxy these cars are. So that'll be one to watch, no doubt. Oof, both of them pounding over those curbs there at the final chicane, using that four-wheel drive to good effect. Here's going to be the critical turn out of Estoril. Can Yuko manage to find a little bit better of an exit as he comes down a little shallower in the middle part of the circuit?
He definitely was narrower on entry, but he was able to keep the nose down. He's got a tremendous opportunity in the slipstream right now behind Andreas Schuster. They're going to come up heavy into this brake zone. He's already up alongside. I would assume that Yuka's going to outbrake him here side by side into this in. Sure enough, here's a familiar face, Leskala to the lead.
Well, it was his own error that cost him, but he's not letting it trip him up too much. It took him a good chunk of the race, but in the end, he is our leader once again. Might have a bit of a battle brewing for 6 in these GTOs. Doug Cloud and Jamie Hamill-Smith. Doug's another one of our onboards here today. Been hovering at about half a second back as now they've got to deal with, I think that's Jungbluth going by. It is indeed. He's going to split them down through the Nürburgring chicane. And then it dives into the 180. Ooh, that does hold up Hamill-Smith slightly.
And I love seeing these onboard shots here. I also use a virtual reality headset. We were talking about this pre-race show. Sometimes it can be a huge advantage in racing, just being able to turn your head and have that sense of awareness out there.
Absolutely. And even though he's got the headset on, he's still leaning into the corners. Look at that.
He needs some harnesses to strap him in is what he needs, Joe.
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, it's a sim racer thing. You do it, your body just wants to do that. I don't know why. But there is Hamill-Smith just barely in front of him. They got to be careful because just behind, Reed Miller's kind of hanging around thinking about becoming a 3-car fight.
I love how animated he is driving this car. You know, we always talk about sim racing versus the real world, and look at how real this is with him racing.
Absolutely, yes. A lot of drivers look very still, stationary, and stoic. Now, he's not expressing a whole lot, but boy, is his body language saying everything it needs to. He's got a good run on Hamill-Smith. He could have a chance at the spot coming down into Adelaide. He's going to poke his nose down to the inside. Hamill-Smith doesn't defend. Can he get the shot off the corner is the question. Maybe that's what Jamie's going for. It is indeed. It's a drag race back up to the Nürburgring chicane.
Jamie Hamill-Smith is going to have the positioning. We'll see if they're going to bang wheels even on the brake zone. Ultimately, Doug Cloud tucks back in behind Hamill-Smith.
Did you see that smile across his face there? He's loving this, having a good time, even if he didn't get the spot. But this does indeed bring Reed Miller up behind him now. It is a 3-way battle.
I always talk about the fun factor, Joe. You gotta have fun out there, and that's exactly what Doug Cloud is doing. He's in the middle of a battle, locking it up as these GTP cars come streaming through, and he's got a smile on his face the whole time.
Yep, down through the Chateau d'Eau hairpin. Gerald Boldu was trying to get this the position away from Cloud, the track position, and he's going to have another go at it in one of the most country time lemonade looking cars I've ever seen, as the number 34 weaves it through the final chicane. Now he's past Doug and sets his sights on Hamill-Smith, hopefully leaving this battle alone.
It was really curious to watch that combination of the classes go through there, because it showed you the difference between driving line and racing line. These Audis have such good speed in the slow speed corners, and the GTP cars definitely do not. It's always that ebb and flow, over, under, even between classes.
Back to Cloud once again. Hamill-Smith has really run away. It's about a second apart from he and Doug, with Reed Miller still clinging to the back as they break into Adelaide. Both of them getting down to the apex nice and tidy. 15 minutes left to go on the clock here. And so far, it's starting, knock on wood, it's starting to feel, Joey, like the race is settling in a bit.
I agree. I'm going to knock on my wood desk over here, so we'll hopefully keep it clean. And something to report on the GTOs to let everybody know, Javier Del Olmo has found his way back up to second place around Andreas Schuster.
Well, he at least made that up. Bad news for Schuster, who had a brief taste of the lead in this series. Meanwhile, continuing to watch Miller here, just hovering behind Cloud. Ooh, and Cloud's, again, getting back up to the rear bumper of Hamel-Smith. So it is once again a three-way fight. That is Humphrey just behind. He's going to briefly interrupt them down into Lassay. More lockups from that right front. It does seem like some of these GTO cars are pretty lightly sprung, causing a lot of lockups today.
You know, I'm going to toss it over to the virtual world, Joe. This is the first few laps we've had on the virtual circuit. We're still laying down virtual rubber out there.
Not sure that's quite how it works, but we'll use that for now as they come into Estoril and off of the long right-hander. Looks like Cloud's not nearly close enough for now, but Hamel-Smith's got to make sure and mind his P's and Q's here coming into the braking. Could overshoot it pretty easily. Wow, really gaining. Oh my goodness. Cloud must have had a great toe or something, because he just sucked that up very quickly.
I think he was just right there on that edge that he could have probably taken a lunge, but he thought better, stayed in line. And I've really been impressed by these three competitors, Jamie Hamel-Smith, Doug Cloud, and Reed Miller. They've kept this battle tight here for 6th place.
They got another one, Yuri Giesen. That's the 4th now, joining up behind them. But it seems like the one that's kind of holding them up is Jamie Hamel-Smith at the front. At times he's able to pull away, and then other times it seems like he's just kind of backing these three up behind him. And coming up to Chateau d'Eau, maybe he can get a good run off the corner. Ooh, he's shallow into the turn. Always tough down through that Imola chicane. And it's not going to be the greatest of exits. If Cloud is ambitious, he could try something into Lassay.
And this is where some lockups have been happening. He's showing his nose a little bit, but not making the lunge. And Joe, I agree with you. With Jamie Hamel-Smith and these cars kind of stacking up behind, he's got pace, but the only reason why they're stacking up behind, the other three cars are faster.
That'd be my guess at the very least. And Doug is once again in with a shout. We've seen him use this slipstream pretty well before, so let's see. Coming off of Estoril. Here we go. He's got the toe. It's going to be about 0.3 of a second between them. Surprised he didn't maybe try and get behind Suarez briefly to give him that little bit more help. Onto the binders. No, he's not going to be close enough into the first hairpin of the lap.
I actually really like what Doug Cloud is doing, because I think he's got an opportunity to make lunges going into these heavy brake zone hairpins, but he's taking his time. He's waiting for the right moment to make his lunge, and he just wants to be a few feet closer when he does.
Yeah, I think he wants to make sure that it's got a safe finish here. I mean, he's survived all the chaos of the start with cars going off and back and forth and all in front of him. And now he just wants to see if he can maybe get up to a 6th place position. They're all 11 seconds behind Ian Haycox there in the top 5, so I'm not anticipating they're going to catch him, but you never know. As both of them lock up, they are sending it in deep. Nobody wants to give an inch in this battle.
Yeah, you're right. Jamie Hamel-Smith is still kind of holding up this train of 3, maybe 4 cars, but Doug Cloud is kind of finding himself behind that immovable object, and Jamie Hamel-Smith is doing a good job keeping his position.
Along the front stretch, once again, this is well behind our battle for second. Del Olmo and Schuster have closed in on one another, so second place has not been decided either. We'll try and keep track of that here in these last 10 minutes of the events. Once again, looking for the good run off the corner. This time, Jamie Hamel-Smith looks a lot safer from Doug than he did last lap.
The other thing that I'm noticing from Doug, I didn't see it earlier, but now he seems to have a little bit of front end damage on that Audi.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the case. It'd be easy to get it here with such heavy braking zones and just outbrake yourself the slightest and run to the car in front. Is that the 16 that we're seeing off? No, that's not the 16. Who was that? That's Arribas. He's currently sitting down in 16th is what it is. but he's the 36. And he'll carry on about a minute behind Gerard Boldu. Oh, and a battle is on with Reed Miller, and that's actually Hamel Smith. I wonder if Reed Miller made a mistake in here as he's let both cars by, and Doug Cloud had to defend from Reed Miller because he was trying to take a 2-for-1 on this lap.
It was actually Jamie Hamel Smith with the issue on a corner exit that stacked both Doug and Reed Miller up behind him. So that is Jamie Hamel Smith down to 8th place, but that puts Doug Cloud up into 6th and Reed into 7th.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a missed shift, as that's easy to do. Oh, Hamel Smith just got hit in the side. That was from another GTO, and in fact, that was Geisen who's going to stop and allow him to keep the position, getting out of the racing line. Hamel Smith backs it up off of the course and is now able to get it going. But a little bit of side-by-side turned into argy-bargy.
Always frustrating to see that, but Yuri, being the good sportsman, pulled over and said, hey, you know what, this is my bad, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stay right here, you keep going.
And he sacrificed a couple spots in the process, I'm pretty sure, so that was very admirable from the 18 to be willing to do so, since you don't have to by iRacing rules. If you have that side-by-side contact, there's no, you must give position up. Meanwhile, did Jungbluth just pass Reed? He did. Wow. Okay, so Fabian Jungbluth has a long-run car here today. Remember, he was as far down as 4th, passed by Farron Grau. He repassed Farron, caught back up to Timothy Reed, and is now P2.
Great drive up there through the field for that number 10 car, Fabian Jungbluth. A little bit of chutes and ladders, but ultimately finds himself in that 2nd spot. But I tell you what, Joe, he's got a whole bit of climb ahead of him because he's 13 seconds behind Hugh Haycox.
Yeah, Hugh Haycox has once again really been putting the laps in and just slamming them down, not letting anybody challenge him. Fabian's got some trouble with Scurry there. The Italian was not willing to give way down to the apex of Chateau d'Eau, and he's now let him by, but Timothy Reed has remained close because of that little checkup. So Fabian's got to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes at the end. There's only 6 minutes left, so not that many laps to complete from here, but he's got to keep it on the island.
Joe, it seemed like just a minute ago we were talking that there was 26 minutes left in this race and things were starting to calm down. You blink, and now we're at 6 minutes left. There has been action nonstop.
Ooh, and speaking of which, battle not going away between Miller and Cloud. So before this involves the likes of Hamel Smith, but he fell into trouble as well as just made a little bit of a mistake on a couple laps ago. Down through the Nürburgring chicane, Jungbluth will interrupt things as he tries to shake the likes of Timothy Reed.
Timothy Reed goes really wide, gets out in the marbles, doesn't lose a ton of lap time, but a little bit. And this is a sketchy area when you're coming up to these GTO cars. It's going to get held up a little bit as well. Oh no, huge problem for Timothy Reed. He's going to have a slowdown.
Yeah, that might put paid to his hopes of taking 2nd back there, as he is going to be at least 4 seconds away from P2 after that. I think just didn't anticipate the closing distance and got distracted by the time he got to the braking zone, and he also gets a little shoved off as Gabby Chavez gets a lap back. That was not for position.
Yeah, you know, he's just misjudging the traffic a little bit, and we're seeing the speed difference between the two classes. And I want to point out Gabby Chavez reading that situation perfectly, slipping right up underneath.
Less than 5 minutes left to go, and still we're seeing a few hiccups here and there. They can't get careless here at the end. They got to watch out for their competitors and also watch how they drive the car. Gabby still sitting in 13th, actually up 5 from where he began. We've lost Mark Jimenez, Timu Toika, Tomasz Bartfai, and that's it for the prototypes. Brendan Lim has pitted in, taken repairs, and gotten back out. And then of the GTOs, Marty Olli and Arturo Vicente Yain are the only 2 that have retired.
And just going back to the sportsmanship, we've got our camera here on Timothy Reed, and We saw Gabby Chavez read the traffic and make the move, but once he realized that Timothy Reed is in position 3 and he came up behind him, he wisely let him go. It's not his race. Let him go and let him race his own race for the lead.
So as they come through towards Lissay once again, this is not for position here for Gabby. That's Timothy Reed just trying to chase down second on the track. Meanwhile, just behind them, this is Reed Miller versus Doug Cloud. Reed has gotten through. He's now in 6 spots, but it's been a lot of fun for Doug, getting plenty of adrenaline in today's race on Christmas Eve, just before we head off to a short break here on the Global SimRacing Channel for the holidays. And up through the Grand Curve leading into Estoril. I think that's Jason Clapper. No, that's Kurt Clapper going around the outside there, and unfortunately robbing Reed Miller of the exit speed that he needs. Here comes Doug Cloud once again with a huge head of steam down into the braking for Adelaide. Looks down to the inside, sends the car in. Can he get it woed up and as well make it around the other side of the corner? Cut back from Reed Miller. It's not completely effective, but they are side by side.
Yeah, looks like Reed Miller's going to have the track positioning. Out-braking duel goes to Ian Haycox, though. I'm sorry, Doug Cloud, as he gets around for that position in 6th place.
Getting some information on Brendan Lima. He may have actually started from pit lane. So I wonder if he had a connection issue and is just trying to get out there to salvage what he can from here. Unfortunately, I think he's too many laps down to overtake hardly any of the prototypes for iRating. Safety rating might be a different story on the other hand. Continuing to watch Cloud be overtaken by Grau, 4th in the prototypes. Big lockup behind them by Reed Miller and completely missed the apex.
You called it. Completely missed the apex. That separates this battle a little bit, and I'm sure Doug Cloud is happy with that. He's been kind of in a battle all race. I'm sure he'd like to have some clean air out there.
I mean, who wouldn't? And coming along the front stretch as they get ready to start lap 24 now for these cars.
Oh, and Timothy Reed has a problem. I know that Gabby Chavez and Timothy Reed were racing, but no contact from Gabby Chavez. Just looks like Timothy Reed got in too deep into that hairpin, locked him up, did a half spin, but kind of found himself pointed the right way.
I'm glad he was able to get it going once again, because he is still in 3rd. I don't think he wants to throw this away. Not sure how much he actually wants to battle Gabby, or if this is Chavez just kind of having some fun out there himself. Watching Hugh Haycox. Final lap just started for Hugh, the Brit, hailing from France here. I guess sort of has a home win on his hands, looking likely. Whoa, the 31 goes around in the meantime.
Yeah, Chavez just spun as our leader starts that final lap there, and I don't think that Gabby was doing anything wrong. He was just having fun racing.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't take out the car that he's racing with and doesn't cost him a position. You know, you could get out there and have fun as a lap down car. No harm done. That's Haycox overtaking Esko Letiniemi, who still runs 13th in the GTOs. I'm trying to think, other than the start of this race, I don't think we've shown Hugh at all.
I was just mentioning he has been on rails out there, and I've been watching him this last lap. He's going to approach a GTO car at a funny spot here on the racetrack, but he's got 20 seconds lead, just kind of cruise around him. But look at this. He keeps the hammer down. Oh, gets held up a little bit, wisely says, okay, I'll hang out here.
All right, so Hugh Haycox, just 2 more braking events, and that is it. As he comes down to the final hairpin at Lissay. Then through the chicane, the number 4 is going to kick it off with back-to-back wins. Magny-Cours presents Hugh Haycox with victory here today in the Camel GT Series.
Congratulations to that number 4. Our GTO leader, Jukka Leskala, finds himself with a few more corners to navigate, but He's pulled out 9 seconds on second place Javier Del Olmo right now. He's just got to navigate one more heavy brake zone. This is the last section where you come up to this final chicane, this hard right-hander 90 degrees, and then jump it over the curbs for the final time, out onto the front straightaway, and accelerate towards that line. In fact, Barney already had the checkered flag ready for him.
A win for Yuko Leskala, another added to his tally of many as he celebrates on his way around. So there we go. Yuko Leskala looking like he might aim for yet another championship. Del Olmo is going to take second, Schuster third, Jungbluth and Reed rounding out your podium on the prototypes. But with that, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world. I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike. My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect. How's it going, Sally? Yeah, I'm alright, Mick. How's it going? Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings where they go into the top and the spiders in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me. Freezing.
And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
Welcome back to Magny-Cours. The first ever race on the Global SimRacing Channel at this track sees Hugh Haycox take a win on sort of home soil. He's a student over there in France, but originally hails from the UK. We'll see if he counts it or not. Fabian Jungbluth followed him home 17 seconds adrift as Fabian had to fight back through after he didn't seem to have the pace early in the race. Still, nice job recovering. Timothy Reed was third as Jason Clapper went from nearly tail end of the field, 15th to 4th. Nicely done. Farron Grau will finish P5 after starting on the front row, as Aaron Humphrey was 6th and German Suarez was 7th. Last one on the lead lap, Fernando Serrato was P8, Tim Yonk 9th, and Darrell Weininger will be in 10th. From there, Brett Poncari finished 11th, Kurt Clapper finished 12th, and Gabby Chavez, starting from pit lane, was able to at least climb up to 13th. That was a gain of 5 positions. Mark Esposito finished 14th with Gerard Boldu in 15th, and Christian Arribas in 16th. It was a DNF for Jimenez, Toika, Bartfi, and Lim.
Here in the GTO field, we have that familiar number 1 Audi taking home the checkered flag, Yuko Leskala. Again with another win. Javier Del Olmo with a good second place there. Andreas Schuster always battling it out with Javier all race, ends up the final podium spot there. Topi Kortenyaimi had a few issues there, finds himself in the 4th place. Ian Haycox with a great consistent run rounding out the top 5. Doug Cloud we rode on board with there with that fantastic battle, ends up 6th with Reed Miller following him in 7th. Franco Escuri in 8th. Jamie Hamelsmith with a few issues late in the race finds himself 9th. Yuri Giesen 10th place. Arturas Kundelis there in the 11th spot. Daniel Repetto looks like he's the first car a lap down, followed by Esko Leitanyami, Kevin Parish, Marty Oli, and then Arturo Jan with some problems early on.
That takes us to our winner for today, Hugh Haycox, who makes it back-to-back wins to kick off the season. So I have to ask you, does this one count as a win on home soil, or do you still consider UK tracks more of home tracks for you?
It's got to be a bit of both, no? It's got to be a bit of home and a bit of... yeah, it's a bit of home.
Well, it looked like you had this place pretty well matched up, although you didn't run away as quickly at the start as we saw at the Nürburgring. Did you find yourself having to really kind of get used to the place a little bit to really get the rhythm down before you really could dominate like you did in the end?
Yeah, I didn't have any practice races this week, so it was first race in. But I find it quite hard to get a rhythm around here, so I think I found it in the end. But yeah, it's a pretty good track. Quite hard in traffic, but otherwise good.
Well, and that brings up the question, because we, this is our first time getting to cover a race here at all, let alone the Camel GT series. Is this one you think deserves to be back on the schedule again next season? Because I know the Camel series guys really have their favorites.
Yeah, I think it's all right. Yeah, I think it could probably appear on the calendar next season.
Well, if it does, we'd love to see you back to try and defend the title. Congratulations on a win, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you more later in the season.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too. That was Hugh Haycox here this Christmas Eve, taking a victory. Hopefully that counts as a nice Christmas present for him today, which unfortunately looks like will wrap us up for the evening, because I don't see anybody else out ready to talk to us. So sadly going to be a bit of a short post-race show, and a big thank you, of course, goes to the Camel community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Also, thanks to the team today, Joey, Zach, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, website, and merchandise store. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race is actually going to be at Indianapolis for this series, the road course, Saturday, December 31st at noon Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here, but until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.